The manifestation of the grace of God is this process of transformation. I'd like to talk first about hearing. And hearing, firstly, from God. God is at work, and hearing is the first step in the process of this transformation. Just to be honest, we have an aversion to hearing sometimes the things that will bring us transformation. You know, we may have the idea that I hear what you're saying, but I don't really need to get spiritual to hear from God to know there's some things in my life I need to know, I need to change. And you say, well, what do you mean? How do you? Well, you just know. You just know, what things that you need to change in your life. And so the idea of really hearing from God, it's important for us to understand in two ways. One is, our idea of what needs to change is often different than what He wants to change in you. And there was a study done recently about investigating these mysterious scuba diving deaths, drownings, where these scuba divers were drowning with oxygen in their tank. And they were dumbfounded to understand how were they drowning and they still had oxygen in their tank. They looked into this and they realized that sometimes when people are scuba diving and maybe they get a little anxious or something happens, they rely on their instinct, and the feeling of suffocation when something is in your mouth is so great that they ripped the mouthpiece off and wound up drowning because the feeling of their instinct and the source of staying alive is the very mouthpiece that they have found now to be uncomfortable. Our instincts sometimes don't always guide us to discovering the grace of God. See, some of the things that you may want to change, really God's not too worried about. For me, it could be like, Lord, I know it's the baldness I need to change, Rogaine. I know you care. You're tired of looking at that, but that God's not worried about that. As we can see here in Hebrews 3, verse 7, it says, therefore, just as the Holy Spirit says, today if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts as when they provoked me, as in the day of trial in the wilderness. What is amazing about this is what God was trying to tell them, that He wanted them to go to the promised land. You were going to defeat the enemy, that you were going to become a great and mighty nation. You were going to be a light to the nations. It wasn't as if He was asking them to do something that was humiliating. He was asking them to realize that the way they were thinking about themselves was inaccurate. But their instincts and their own paradigm couldn't handle it. And so they couldn't hear it.